Welcome. I know on behalf of the family that's here today, they would want me to say thank you for your love and support to them during this time of loss. But today, we're going to celebrate the life of William Bill Gibson. Bill passed away on October 10th. He was born in Baltimore, Maryland to William and Joyce Gibson, and he was happily married to Deborah for 31 years. Bill had a successful career starting off in information technology and then later accounting until he retired. Bill loved a lot of different things. He loved golf, he loved the beach, he loved cycling, he loved music, he loved his piano lessons, he loved his guitar lessons, but most of all, Bill loved spending time with his friends and especially his family, which we're going to talk more about here in a minute. Bill is survived by his wife, Deborah, and his sons, Ryan, Corey, and Sam. He is also survived by his mother, Joyce, brothers Brian and wife Paulette, Stephen and his wife, Regina, sisters Barbara, Colleen, and husband, Chris, niece, Jordan, nephews, Chris and wife, Jen, Jared and partner, Haley, and many grandnephews and grandnieces. And so today we want to celebrate his life. We want to think about the memories that we left behind with him. And so we're going to celebrate those things. We're going to celebrate some in song. We're going to celebrate some in just remembering just the fun memories that you have with him. But we want to celebrate him because he lived a life that's worth celebrating today. So we're going to start off today by celebrating him and just in remembering him just through song. And we're going to start off with What a Wonderful World. And so listen and thank you.
project. And he had come onto the project, and I was on this project, and it was one of these disastrous projects that were supposed to implement in 2 months, and it was like 20-some months later. Several years later, my very, very good friend Jean had found out that Bill was single, and she made it her mission at that point in time that Bill and I should go out with each other. She schemed, she planned, she invited him to lunch, she did all these crazy, crazy things. And Bill thwarted every one of her moves. I knew what she was up to, but he didn't. And to complicate matters, he had finished his CPA exam and changed career and left the Blue Cross and Blue Shield and went to work for one of the big sixes at the time, or fours, Coopers and Lybrand. They're no longer in existence, as an audit manager. So now she didn't have direct access, and so she enlisted friends of his to go ahead and continue to try to get this happen. He called one day and asked if I wanted to go out on a date, and I said no, because I was going on vacation with friends, and but I was going to be back in town at a certain time. He didn't call when I got back in town, so she kept saying, has he called, has he called? And I said, no, why would he? I turned him down, and so she started her little back door again, and eventually he called, and I said yes. And we went out on our first date, and it was playing racquetball and then dinner, and that was Bill, because Bill was very unpretentious, wanted to make it very easy to know and very easy to get to know. And so there was no pressure at this stage. My friend Jean then proceeded to ask, are you planning to go out with him again if he asks? And I said, I didn't think so, because he wasn't my type. And her response was, it's just a date. He isn't asking you to marry him. And so the rest is history. We had a very, very good relationship. We had a lot of fun with family and friends, vacationing. He just moved into my life very easily, and I moved into his life very easily. He had never had a problem walking into a room with 100 people he didn't know and getting to know a few of those people more than superficially. He could tell me, oh, that's so-and-so's father, and he drinks this type of bourbon. And I'm thinking, how do you know this from, a 2-3 hour get together? But that's the way he was. Which, when you're first meeting somebody, you're always worried, is my friend going to be accepted by our friends and such? And I never worried about that. Bill was who he was, and he was easy and comfortable, and he just enjoyed life. We had similar interests, except for cats and my swimming, and swimming. The cats, we still have them. They're in the garage, and he was fine with them over there. Swimming, guys, I hate to say it, but my husband thought it was like watching paint dry. And especially our son, who was a distant swimmer, and in my eyes watching it, it's like watching paint dry. But he volunteered in summer swim. He timed. He came to all of Corey's swim meets. The only ones he didn't go to were the travel meets. He brought Sam with him, and he never once complained about any of that. When the boys were playing soccer, he attended all their games. When Corey was doing Little League, he coached. So he was always involved with them in their sporting activities and supporting them in any which way that he knew how. Many don't know that, the Baltimore friends know this, but my husband decided that it would be great to open a pool hall. And so he did all this research, bought all these tables. We had 9 Brunswick gold crowns, 9 by 4.5s, and we had 3 coin-operated tables and jukebox and food and everything. And he did this while he was working full-time at Blue Cross and Blue Shield as an account manager in finance. As my one girlfriend said, who does that? Bill did it. Okay, Bill did it. We had an individual, his name was Jay. Jay would hang out at our pool hall. He was floating around between pool halls and, you know, had this appearance about him. He had this blonde, spiky hair with black roots and dark eyeliner, and wore all black and extremely pale because daylight was not his thing. And my husband gave him a chance. He gave him a chance and hired him. And Jay was a blessing. He knew pool, he knew the clientele that we had, which were all young 20-somethings. He knew, he took over, Ryan would hang out with us, and so, sorry Susan if you're listening, but yeah, your son had a misspent youth, and Jay taught him how to play 9-ball and 8-ball, and you know, so Phil, we were very happy with Jay, and he's remained with us until we closed down the pool hall about 5 or 6 years later. I do have, if anyone ever interested in some tales to tell with some of the people that we had as customers. We skied a lot with friends. We would, every year we would go out west somewhere, and Bill just loved every bit of it, the socializing. I mean, if you look around, there'll be a couple of pictures of him going like this. This was, look at me, look at this world, look how great everything is. And for him it was. After Corey was born, I talked my husband into hosting an exchange student for a year. And he did. He opened up his heart. He opened up his home to this young lady who was 16 years old, and for a year she lived with us, and it was a wonderful experience. A year or two later, after she went back home to Moldova, Bill and I traveled to visit her, and we stayed with her family, and my husband, knowing no Russian, and her mom knowing limited English, they bonded. This was my husband, they bonded. And Bevo's a good way to bond, you know, a beer here and a little shot every once in a while. And food, her mom's a phenomenal cook. But that week was absolutely wonderful. And, you know, Bill would talk about it a lot when we first came back, because he really had a wonderful time with that, meeting Italia's mom and such. Bill was somebody who always was on time, and being late was mean on time. So he married me, who was always skating in by the seat of her pants, and I have to tell the story because he never forgave me for it, but he never brought it up either afterwards. We were heading out to Colorado for skiing, and we missed the plane. Our luggage arrived. We had the luggage on there, but we missed the plane. 5 airports later, we arrived in Colorado. You know, we wound up leaving Baltimore, BWI to Reagan, and then from Reagan to Chicago to Stapleton, and then Stapleton to Durango. We got off that plane, and friends were waiting. They had our luggage. And I only have one picture of that, but I did not bring, which was his face, and ever since that, he would say to me things like, we did not agree on who missed the plane, but he would say, we don't want a repeat of Colorado when it goes somewhere. So, when we moved to North Carolina, the opportunity came up for work, and I discussed it with him. And he was all for it. He had no reservations. A little warmer, longer fall, earlier spring, shorter winter. And we moved to Home-Cary in Buckhurst, and he loved it there. He absolutely loved it. He loved talking to our neighbors. He loved the warmth, the sunshine. We have wonderful neighbors. He really enjoyed watching our neighbor's son, Dylan, because when we first moved in, Dylan was about 2 or 3, and now Dylan, I think, is going to be 14 next year, right? And so Bill really enjoyed watching him grow and watching the young man that he's becoming. He used to refer to him more recently as Dylan's growing up as Little Ian, you know? So he just got a kick out of that. He loved, our neighbors across the street have 2 retrievers. He used to refer to them as old boy, here come the boys. And, if you've ever seen Madison and Chipper, they are wonderful dogs, but watching Erin and her husband walk them, it would tickle Bill because they are boisterous and fun and you know, he just loved them. He, Bill was when I met him, he was into blues and jazz, and it became something that he really enjoyed the music. There was a period of time before Sam and when Corey was young, that he was traveling back and forth to New Orleans for work, and he would come back with CDs because he would go to visit the local artist and enjoy the music and come back with their CDs. And those iPods are loaded with a lot of those artists and their music. He started taking piano lessons. Well, he actually started taking piano self-taught because he could read music. Corey was taking piano, and Bill thought this is a good thing for me to do, refurbish my music skills. And then after Corey lost interest, Bill continued on. And then he decided, okay, I need to take some lessons. And so he did. He took lessons at the community college. When we came down here to North Carolina, he continued on through his lessons and actually continued with them through parts of COVID. And then he decided to focus mostly on guitar. He played some guitar when he was in high school and decided to focus it. So you don't see this, but I have a collection of some expensive guitars and some expensive keyboards in what he claimed to be his room after Corey moved out. It became his music room. Turned that overnight. I mean, it was literally, I photographed it and I said, your stuff's gone. And he goes, wow, it didn't take Dad very long. No. So he definitely, and he continued on even when he didn't feel like it. He would still go to guitar lessons and such. His last piece he was working on was Key to the Highway by Eric Clapton and B.B. King. And so we will hear that. When he found, he was looking forward to, I don't know why, but he was looking forward to my trip to Austin for swimming. He was going to wind up making it as we did with Florida. He was going to have a day at the beginning and the day at the end that we had fun together, and then he would become a swim widower for the 3 or 4 days that I would be officiating. Our San Antonio trip, we went there because of the eclipse, but we didn't see anything. But then again, you know, while I was officiating, he went ahead and found ways to entertain himself, so I never worried about Bill at all. His sister Barbara said he made life look easy, and he really did. He really did make it look easy. His accomplishments, there are a lot, and he wouldn't know it. He would not talk about them. You just had to know him. I think when he sat for the CPA exam, he passed it the first time. And he studied for this exam, flying back and forth to Boston for work. And when he came to work, we worked together actually 3 times. one time at Blue Cross Blue Shield, again at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then when I went into a consulting company, he came to work for that as their chief financial officer. The challenge he had on that was government accounting is different than private accounting, and Bill's experience was private accounting, and she had to pass a DCCA audit to continue with her accreditation with the federal government. And he had 9 months to get his hands into her accounting system, which was just being managed by a tax accountant at that point in time. Had to get all the books in order, had to get all the regs together and research what was required. The audit came through, they passed, and the next go round he said it was so much easier because he knew what he was doing at that point in time. But he did that. When she decided to sell, he had to put together all the financials on what a great opportunity, all our clients, our money we're making, our margins and such, and present them to larger firms. She retired quite wealthy, and he continued to work anyway. He just seemed to, I don't know what else to say other than he just embraced life. He was a wonderful husband, he was a wonderful father, he was hardworking, dedicated, but he also knew if you met him at work, you would think, oh, he's a stick in the mud, because he was so serious and focused in at work. But you took him outside that office and he partied. I mean, y'all knew him older. When I was younger, he could party. Definitely. And he did. And so he was my strength, he was my balance. I tend to be a lot more high-strung than he is. He was steady. And there's so much I could say. I mean, all of his working with each one of the sons in math, they would say, I'm having trouble. Don't look at me because I can't do it. He did it. He did it all. He did it with Corey. He did it with Sam. Sam will tell you he didn't like it, but he did it. And Sam didn't like it. Bill did it. And he did it with Ryan. I just look at this and I say, I am blessed that he was in my life for as long as he was. He was my soulmate. He's going to be so missed by me and his friends and his family, because it was just a little too soon, but it wasn't my plan, and I told him that it was God's plan, and so we have to accept it for what it is. I hope that he's happy, and I hope that he's looking down saying, okay, y'all gonna do this without me, but you know how to, because you have my strength. And I think that's about all I'm going to say about Bill. I do have a friend of ours wrote something, and he says, our friend Armin in Maryland, I've known Bill for over 35 years. I first met him through my wife's best friend, Debbie, from the start. Bill was a man of few words, but when he did speak, it always meant something, and that's true. What he said was thoughtful, to the point, and honest. You always knew where you stood with Bill, and that's one of the many reasons I like being around him. Over the years, our friendship never wavered. We shared a lot of interest building and flying RC airplanes. I did forget about that. There's one in my garage. Bike riding, playing guitar and piano, and especially our love of the blues. We were also bonded by our shared views on politics and, of course, our love for golf. Bill was the one who first got me into golf, and he became my official golf partner for many years, at least until he and Debbie, and until how long he's known me, because he calls me Debbie, moved to North Carolina. We've played every week from April through October, mostly at Diamond Ridge and Woodlands, but sometimes at other Baltimore area courses. Sometimes our sons Ryan and Armin J would join us also. Judy and I shared some wonderful vacations with Bill and Debbie in Myrtle Beach, Florida, and Ohio. And somehow, when Bill was in town, we always found time to fit in a few rounds of golf. I remember when Bill was first diagnosed with cancer about 3.5 years ago, just before the 4 of us were headed to Florida. He was such a trooper, such a fighter. He was always strong, whether it was out on the course or on the bike. Honestly, I could never keep up with him in either one. After we all retired, the 4 of us had plans to travel more and spend more time together. But life had other plans. During Bill's many treatments, I always kept him in my prayers. Weekly during my men's rosary group, I kept him on the intentions list. But in the end, the Lord has his own plans for my friend. If I know Bill, he's probably already in the heavenly orchestra playing a tune on the guitar. I miss him deeply and take comfort in thinking that one day, when it's my turn, he'll save me a spot in the band. Farewell, my good friend, until we meet again. Armin. So, that's about all I can say, or there's a lot I can say, but I don't want to keep going on and rambling, because my husband would say, be succinct and to the point, and take all that extra stuff out of that email.
My name's Colleen. I'm David's youngest sister.
Or
Bill.
Bill, to say why.
Probably not the only one that still calls him David, but anyway. I just wanted to read a reading today and also a poem. We do not want you to be unaware, brothers, about those who have fallen asleep, so that you may not grieve like the rest who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose, so too will God, through Jesus, bring with him those who have fallen asleep. Indeed, we tell you this on the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will surely not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself, with a word of command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, will come down from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore console one another with these words. We knew little that morning God was going to call your name. In life we loved you dearly, in death we do the same. It broke our hearts to lose you. You did not go alone. For part of us were with you. The day God called you home. You left us beautiful memories. Your love is still our guide. And though we cannot see you, you are always by you are always by our side. Our family chain is broken, and nothing seems the same. But as God calls us one by one, the chain will link again.
Thank you guys for sharing. And at this time, we'll listen to another song. Deborah actually mentioned it. It's going to be Eric Clapton and D.B. King, Key to the Highway. He was a great husband, a great father, great brother, great friend. In the words of his family, when I spoke to them this week, he was just a great guy. Like that's just who he was. He loved others around him well. And as we get started, as kind of we've been started here today, I do want to give an encouragement to you guys and to the family in this time of loss. Sometimes when we have the loss of a loved one, there's a trap we can fall into. And that's where we think we can't show emotion or we can't grieve because we have to be strong for somebody next to us. So we have to be strong for them. We have to kind of put on the space that we're not feeling right now just so that we can be supportive to the person next to us. I want to challenge you not to do that. Show emotion. The shortest verse in all the Bible is John 11:35, and it's these two words. It says, Jesus wept. And what did Jesus weep over? He wept over the loss of a loved one in Lazarus. And so if it's okay for Jesus to grieve and to weep over the loss of a loved one, it's definitely okay for you to do the same. So don't feel like you can't show emotion, but actually pull together, grieve with one another. And I think the grieving process is a process that God brings in our lives to help, one, draw us closer to one another and draw us closer to Him. So don't feel like you can't grieve because you feel like you have to be strong. But actually, in this moment, it's okay to be weak. It's okay to show your emotion. It's okay to grieve together. And so that would be my challenge to you. As I've been hearing just from the stories that Deborah told me earlier this week and just today as well, and just from what the boys have told me, because I was able to meet them on Zoom, at least two of them, the word that kind of came to my mind was just this word of legacy. He left a legacy for you guys to follow. He was everything to his family. As a parent, I have two kids, and I want to leave a legacy for my kids. I want them to know what it looks like to work hard, to study hard. I want to show them what it means to be gracious and to be kind and to be loving, to show empathy, and ultimately to have fun, right? And after listening to just the stories and just the way the boys talked about Bill and the way that Deborah did as well, I think that's exactly what he left you guys. He left you guys a legacy, some tangible example to walk in as maybe he's not here now, but you have a memory of how those things. You have a memory of what it looks like to work hard. You have a memory of what it looks like to have fun, what it looks like to play golf, to do accounting, whatever it is. You have those memories and walk in that legacy. Don't forget the things that he left behind you. And that's the challenge that you have today. It's like, don't forget that legacy, but continue to walk in that legacy. That's how he's remembered, by remembering the things that he taught, the things that he did with you, and to walk in that legacy. If you knew Bill, you knew he loved his family. His boys were some of the most important people in his life. He was everything for them. They listed off a list of things that he basically was for them. He basically was a homework helper for them, whether elementary school or whether college. He learned international accounting for his son, right? Like that's a good dad. Like, what dads want to study international accounting for his kid, right? I know I probably wouldn't do that for my son, but he did it for his. He's a much better dad than I am. But he was there for them in those moments for them. He was a job coach for them. He helped them put together resumes. He helped them understand, it's like, okay, you have this hard situation at work. Maybe here's how you deal with a hard coworker or a hard circumstance at work. Like, he coached them through kind of life lessons and with their jobs and everything. He helped them with home renovations when they needed it. He was just always there for them. He loved his boys, always was there for them, and they knew he could count on them. They could count on him. Also, he loved his wife Deborah of 31 years. He supported her, and I think you heard those memories that she shared just a few months ago. Even though he didn't necessarily care so much for those things, he cared for her, so he cared about those things. And that's the mark of just a great husband. that you still support and are there for them, even though it may not be your thing, you know? And so that shows true love, right? That when, even though it's not the funnest thing that's on your plate, you know, you still are there for them because you love them, right? And so he comforted her. Even when she got nervous or anxious, he was this calming presence for her, even in the hard times. He was kind, he was loving, he was supportive. You know, even though she was a cat lady and he was a dog lady, there was still mutual love for them, right? Yeah, that's just who Bill was. He loved taking vacations with his family. He loved social gatherings. Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, South Carolina, I think were some of the top ones. She mentioned Durango about skiing. Durango is a fantastic place to ski if you have never been there. And so that's just who Bill was. He loved spending time with the ones he loved the most. Obviously, he worked hard in his career. He excelled in every avenue that he went in, whether information technology, accounting, whatever field he was in, he did well at. Just because he was just that hard worker. He loved the outdoors. He took up motorcycling, cycling, you know, whatever else. He passed those down to his kids. He loved just being outside. Golf, obviously, is a great sport if you love the outdoors, and he took that up. He just took time to enjoy life, to enjoy the things that God has given us, to be able to say, hey, let's have fun in this. You know, he had his hobbies as well, his weekly guitar lessons, piano lessons. He loved doing those, even though he considered himself a hack at the guitar, didn't see himself as that great, he still loved doing those things, right? Loved music. Deborah mentioned the iPods, that he had hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of songs, and he would just take them to the gym, work out to them, pick an iPod, press play, and see what comes up, you know. That's just who Bill was. If you knew Bill, you knew his sense of humor. He was a witty guy, right? Like, he just would know a circumstance, and he would just have a little one-liner here, a little sentence there, that would just make everybody laugh, right? But if you also knew his sense of humor, you probably knew his laugh. The belly laugh, I think is what it was called. Like, it just made everybody around him just kind of chuckle and laugh, because you heard his laugh, you're like, all right, it's a good time right now. That's what's going on. He had his quirks. He didn't like being late, and like I said, he forgave Deborah, thankfully, for that one time he did miss his flight, and there were 5 flights later, they made it to Colorado. I'm sure that did test his patience during that moment. I'm pretty sure it did, right? But if you knew Bill, he was always optimistic. He was a glass half full type of guy. He always had an upbeat attitude. He looked at life and saw the good in it, and that's just an incredible quality to have. It's easy in our lives to focus on what's going wrong and not to see what's going right. And I think Bill, from the way it sounds, was the guy that always looked at life like, let's just focus on the good and not the bad. Even when he got his diagnosis in cancer, he stayed positive. Like everybody, it probably shook him a little bit at first, but then he turned and was like, no, we're going to beat this. We're going to fight it till the end. And he was able to stay positive throughout the process. And with this cancer, he always fought it, and he put up a good fight with it. But when you think about Bill's life, just think about the descriptors that we talked about today. He was a loving husband, loving dad, supportive dad, great worker, loving, kind, funny, witty, great friend. He lived a great life. And these are the things that we want to celebrate. These are the things that we want to remember today. You know, in our lives, there are seasons for everything. There's a season typically where we're in good health, and then ultimately there will be seasons where we're in bad health as well. There are seasons where we may prosper, and there may be seasons where we may be broke. But in all the seasons, we are to love and to treat others the way Christ loved and treated others. The Bible actually speaks of this in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Actually, Solomon wrote a book in the book of Ecclesiastes where he was the wisest man that ever lived. And the one thing God was like, you can ask me for anything. He was like, I just want wisdom, God. And God granted him that wisdom. And so Solomon wrote a book about the meaning of life. And Solomon basically sought out in life, like, what is the meaning of life? Like, what gives ultimate pleasure? What gives ultimate meaning? And so basically he tried everything under the sun. And he sought, like, what will bring sustaining happiness? And that's basically what the book of Ecclesiastes is about. What can bring you true and eternal joy and eternal happiness? And here's what it says in Ecclesiastes 3. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the sun. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to heal and a time to tear down. A time to build and a time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. And in this passage, Solomon is telling us basically about the cyclical nature of life. How there's a season for everything in our life. And ultimately, Solomon is telling us, trust in God's timing with life, because life is just a lot of seasons. And ultimately, that God's ways are higher than our ways. His wisdom is higher than our wisdom. His understanding is greater than our understanding. And he wants us to understand that God's timing is perfect. And he wants us to know that there is a divine purpose for everything in our life. And these are the things that Solomon urges us to remember. Remember the love that that Bill had for all of you. Remember the seasons of life that you shared with him. So the question now comes, what are you going to do with his legacy? Remember the good times that you had with him. Remember his life. Walk in that legacy. Take time to grieve with one another. And during that time, lean into God, because you can trust him during this time. Treasure the time that you have with Bill. Remember those things. Do things in remembrance of him. Go play around the golf. Go listen to some of his iPods. Do things to remember him. And in his memory, just live out his legacy. Before we get to our last psalm, there's one last passage I want to read over to you. It's Psalm 23. A lot of you probably know or have at least heard this psalm before. But David wrote this psalm, King David wrote this psalm at the end of his life. He had seen the good, the bad. He's experienced it all. And at the end of his life, he basically understood who God was. And God was his ultimate shepherd who guided him through every season of life. And here's what he wrote. He says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live." So take that, hold that close to you. Know that you have the good shepherd with you, even in this time of loss. The last song we're going to listen to before we close out today is going to be the Waterboys, the whole of the moon. So listen together.
You held it in your
came today in support of the family. This will conclude our service, but the family did want me to let you know that following this, they will have light fare at their house. It's 115 Chesterfield Drive in Cary, and so if you would like to go and share your condolences and visit with the family, you can do so after this, but they will be around just for a little bit. If you can't make it over to the house either, they will be here for just a little bit that you can go up and talk to them for just a minute. But thank you for coming again, and you are dismissed.